Your bride ran away. The sheriff laughed, pushing forward her sister. The rancher said, "She's the one I want." "Clara, what are you doing?" Emma froze in the doorway of her sister's bedroom, watching Clara stuff dresses into a worn carpet bag. It was past midnight. The house was dark. And tomorrow was Clara's wedding day. Clara spun around, her beautiful face twisted with annoyance. "What does it look like I'm doing? I'm leaving." "But the wedding, Jake Cole is expecting you tomorrow morning. Then Jake Cole is going to be disappointed." Clara shoved past Emma, bag in hand. "I'm not marrying some rancher I've never met just because Papa needs an alliance." Emma's heart hammered. "Clara, please. The Cole family gave land, cattle. Papa made promises." Clara laughed, cold and sharp. "Then you marry him, Emma. God knows no one else will ever want you." The words hit like a slap. Before Emma could respond, Clara was gone, slipping out the back door into the darkness where a man on horseback waited. Emma stood alone in the empty room, her sister's cruelty still ringing in her ears. And tomorrow, she would have to face everyone. Morning came too soon. The church was packed. Two powerful ranching families, the Millers and the Coles, had arranged this marriage to unite their lands, and old tensions, create an alliance that would make both families untouchable in the territory. Everyone had come to witness it. Emma stood outside the church doors, her hands shaking, her father's furious face burned into her memory. "You will go in there," he'd hissed at home that morning. "You will tell them Clara is gone. And you will take whatever comes." Now she had to walk into that church and destroy everything. Emma pushed open the doors. The room fell silent. Every head turned. Emma walked down the aisle, past rows of staring faces, toward the front where Jake Cole stood in his Sunday best beside the preacher. Jake was tall, broad-shouldered, weathered from years of ranch work. 35, maybe. His dark eyes watched her approach with growing confusion. Behind him stood his father, William Cole, the most powerful rancher in 3 counties. Cold eyes. Hard jaw. A man used to getting what he wanted. Emma reached the front, her voice barely a whisper. "Mr. Cole, I need to speak with you." Jake frowned. "Where's Clara?" Emma's throat closed. She couldn't say it, couldn't form the words. The church doors banged open. The sheriff strode in, his boots echoing on the wooden floor. He held a piece of paper, the note Clara had left. "Well, Cole," the sheriff announced loudly, his voice carrying to every corner of the church. "Looks like your bride ran away." The room erupted. Guess. Whispers. Shocked faces turning to each other. Someone laughed, a nervous, disbelieving sound that spread like wildfire. Jake's face went white, then red. His jaw clenched so hard Emma could see the muscle jump. William Cole's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "What?" The sheriff walked forward, handed him the note. William read it, his face darkening with rage. "She ran off with some drifter," the sheriff said, barely hiding his amusement. "Left this morning before dawn." The church erupted again, louder this time. Mockery mixed with shock. Emma heard fragments of cruel whispers. "Humiliated the Coles. What kind of family? Miller girl was too good for a rancher anyway." William Cole's voice boomed over the noise. "Silence!" The room went still. William turned to Emma's father, who had just arrived, his face ashen. "Daniel, you promised us a bride. We gave you land, cattle, water rights. And this is how you repay us." Emma's father stepped forward, desperate. "Williams, please, I didn't know she would. You made a contract. A binding agreement between our families." William's eyes were ice. "You will honor it." I'll find her. Bring her back." "No." William's voice was final. "The wedding was supposed to be today. Our families, our business partners, the territorial governor, everyone is here, watching us be made fools of." Emma's father looked around wildly, seeing the staring faces, the barely hidden smirks, the judgment. Then his eyes landed on Emma. "Take Emma," he blurted out. "She's a daughter. The contract is fulfilled." Emma's blood turned to ice. William Cole's eyes swept over her, slowly, deliberately, cruelly, taking in her size, her plain face, her terror. "You expect my son to marry her?" His voice dripped with contempt. "Look at her." The church went deathly silent. Emma felt every eye on her body. Felt the weight of their judgment, their disgust, their pity. Her father's voice cracked. "William, please. The contract said a Miller daughter." "The contract specified Clara." William turned away from Emma like she was nothing. "This is unacceptable." Emma stood there, tears burning behind her eyes, wishing the floor would swallow her whole. "I'll take her." Everyone turned. Jake Cole stood tall, his voice steady, his eyes on Emma. William spun around. "Absolutely not." "I'll take her," Jake repeated, louder this time. "You will not." "I'm 35 years old, father." Jake's voice was steel. "It's my choice." William's face went crimson with rage, but before he could speak, the preacher cleared his throat. "Then let's proceed." The ceremony was brief, vows spoken in wooden voices, rings omitted, a kiss that didn't happen. "I now pronounce you man and wife." The words fell like stones. The church doors slammed behind them as they walked out into the sunlight, married, but not by choice. The wagon ride to Jake's ranch stretched on in silence so thick Emma could barely breathe through it. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the horizon, trying to make herself as small as possible. Trying not to think about what happened in that church. Trying not to hear Clara's voice in her head, "God knows no one else will ever want you." But someone had chosen her. Sort of. Jake sat beside her, reins loose in his hands, his jaw tight. He hadn't looked at her once since they left town. Emma wanted to thank him. Wanted to say something, anything, to break this terrible silence. But every time she opened her mouth, the words died in her throat. "What did you say to a man who married you despite his father?" The ranch appeared as the sun began its descent. A sturdy house with a wide porch, a barn, corrals stretching toward distant hills. It was well kept. The home of a man who worked hard and lived alone. Jake pulled the wagon to a stop and climbed down. He stood there for a moment, staring at the house like he'd forgotten what came next. Finally, he grabbed Emma's small bag and walked toward the door without waiting for her. Emma followed, her legs stiff from the ride, her whole body buzzing with nerves she couldn't name. Inside, the house was simple but comfortable. A kitchen with a wood stove. A sitting area with worn furniture. Stairs leading up to what must be the bedroom. Jake set her bag down and stood in the middle of the room, his hands opening and closing at his sides. "I'll show you." He stopped. Started again. "Your room is upstairs." He climbed the stairs. Emma followed. At the top, Jake opened a door and froze. Emma looked past him and felt her stomach drop. The room was decorated. Flowers in a vase on the dresser, wildflowers and roses, still fresh. Candles on the bedside table, waiting to be lit. The bed made up with a beautiful quilt, clearly new, the colors rich and carefully chosen. The curtains were tied back with ribbons. The window was open, letting in the evening breeze that made everything feel soft and romantic and absolutely, devastatingly wrong. Someone had prepared this room for a wedding night. For Jake and Clara. Emma stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the flowers, the candles, the bed that had been made for a bride who never came. Jake's face had gone red. I forgot." He strode into the room and grabbed the vase of flowers, water sloshing over his hands. This wasn't supposed to, damn it. He carried the flowers out, came back, started yanking the ribbons off the curtains. "Jake, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." His voice was rough, almost angry, but not at her. At himself. At the situation. At the universe that had put them here. This wasn't for you. I mean, it was supposed to be for... He stopped himself, looking stricken. Emma's throat burned. For Clara. Jake stood there holding ribbons in his fists, his jaw working. Emma. It's fine. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I understand. No, you don't. He threw the ribbons down. I didn't even know they'd done this. My neighbor's wife, Mrs. Patterson, she must have come yesterday to prepare the room. I was in town for the wedding. I didn't see. He ran a hand through his hair, looking younger suddenly. But I'll take all this down. Give me a minute. Jake. Emma's voice was quiet. It's all right. It's not all right. He pulled the new quilt off the bed, revealing plain sheets underneath. You shouldn't have to see this. Shouldn't have to. He stopped, the quilt clutched in his hands. I'm making this worse. Emma stood there, watching him try to erase evidence of a wedding night that was supposed to happen with someone else. Watching him fumble with decorations meant for a bride he'd never wanted. And suddenly she was exhausted. Bone deep, soul-tired, exhausted. Jake, stop. He looked at her, breathing hard, the quilt still in his hands. Just stop. Please. Jake set the quilt down slowly. They stood there in the half-stripped room, neither knowing what to say. Finally, Jake spoke, his voice low. You take the bed. I'll sleep downstairs. This is your room. I'm not making you sleep anywhere else. His tone was firm. Final. You can have the room. I'll take the sofa. Jake, I can't. Emma. He looked at her, then really looked at her, and his eyes were tired and sad and something else she couldn't name. I brought you here. I married you in front of the whole town. I defied my father for you. The least I can do is give you a bed to sleep in. But where will you? I'll manage. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Turn back. I won't expect. He struggled for words. You don't have to be afraid of me. Emma's chest tightened. I'm not afraid of you. Good. He nodded once, awkward and stiff. There's a lock on the door if you want it. I don't need. But he was already gone, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. Emma stood alone in the wedding night room that wasn't hers, surrounded by half-removed decorations for a bride who never came. She sat on the edge of the bed meant for Clara, and finally let the tears come. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet, exhausted tears for a girl who'd spent her whole life being second choice and had just been reminded of it in the cruelest possible way. Downstairs, Jake sat on the sofa in the dark, his head in his hands. He'd married a woman he didn't know to prove a point to his father. He'd brought her to a house decorated for someone else. He'd stripped the room like he was trying to erase a mistake. And now she was upstairs crying. He could hear it, faint through the floorboards, and he had no idea how to fix any of it. He'd defied his father. Claimed his independence. Made his choice. Jake lay down on the sofa, still in his wedding clothes, and stared at the ceiling. It was going to be a long night. Upstairs, Emma lay in the stripped bed, in the room that wasn't meant for her, and wondered if she'd made the worst mistake of her life. She didn't know yet. The days blurred into a rhythm neither of them had planned. Jake left before dawn. Emma woke to an empty house and cold coffee. She'd cook, clean, move through rooms that felt too big and too small at the same time. He'd return at dusk, smelling of leather and sweat and open sky. They'd eat in near silence. Go upstairs. Sleep 5 feet apart in a room that hummed with everything they wouldn't say. It should have been unbearable. Somehow, it wasn't. 2 weeks in, Emma found the ranch accounts buried in Jake's office. The ledgers were chaos, bills unpaid, numbers that didn't match, money bleeding out through carelessness. She spent an afternoon organizing them. When Jake came in for supper, she set the ledger beside his plate. You've been overcharged on feed for 3 months. And the cattle buyer owes you $200. Jake stared at the neat columns, the corrections in her careful handwriting. How did you? I kept my father's books for years. Emma's voice was quiet. I can fix this. If you want. Jake looked at her then, really looked, and something shifted in his face. Fix it. 2 words. But they felt like trust. The letters went out. Money came back. Jake started asking her opinion on expenses, on purchases, on decisions he used to make a loan. And slowly, so slowly Emma almost didn't notice, the silence between them changed. Less hostile. Or waiting. One morning, Emma was making bread when Jake came in early. She didn't hear him approach until his voice came from right behind her. Smells good. Emma's hands stilled in the dough. He was close enough that she could feel the heat of him at her back, smell the sun and leather on his skin. Jake reached past her for the coffee pot on the high shelf. His arm brushed her shoulder. His chest nearly touched her back. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. Jake's breath was warm on her neck, uneven, close. Then he stepped back fast, the coffee pot clutched in his hand like a shield. Sorry. His voice was rough. He poured coffee and left without looking at her. Emma stood there, hands covered in flour, heart racing, something hot and terrifying and impossible coiling in her chest. That night, she couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking about how close he'd been. How neither of them had moved. How it had felt like falling and flying at the same time. On the floor, Jake lay awake too, staring at the ceiling, his hands clenched into fists. 3 weeks in, everything shattered. Emma was in the garden when a wagon rolled up, a woman in an expensive traveling dress, a handsome man at her side. Emma's sister swept toward her with a bright, cruel smile. Emma, darling. Surprise. The man, Thomas, tipped his hat. We heard you were nearby. Thought we'd visit. Emma couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Clara threw her arms around Emma in a performative embrace. Look at you. Playing house with the rancher. How domestic. Clara, what are you doing here? Can't a sister visit? Clara's eyes swept over the modest house, the garden, Emma's work-worn hands. We're on our way to Denver. Thomas has business. But I simply had to see how you were managing. Jake appeared in the doorway, his face hard. Clara's smile brightened. Jake, how wonderful to see you. You remember Thomas, don't you? My husband? The word hung in the air like poison. We should go, Thomas said, sensing the tension. Nonsense. Emma, you must show me the house. I'm dying to see how you've settled in. Before Emma could refuse, Clara was inside, trailing her gloved fingers over furniture, inspecting everything with barely hidden disdain. It's cozy, Clara said sweetly. Smaller than I expected. But I suppose it's perfect for her. She glanced at Emma. Well, for you. Jake's jaw clenched. Clara turned to him, her expression all false sympathy. Jake, I hope you're not too disappointed. I know this wasn't what you expected when you went to that church. She laughed, light, musical, cruel. But Emma's always been good at making the best of difficult situations, haven't you, sister? Clara, Emma's voice was thin. I mean it as a compliment. Really? Clara touched Jake's arm. And Jake, you should be grateful. If I hadn't left, you'd never have known what you were missing. She glanced at Emma. Emma's very capable. I'm sure she keeps your house running smoothly. The unspoken words hung heavy. That's all she's good for. We're leaving, Jake said flatly. Clara's eyes glittered. Of course, we've overstayed. She kissed Emma's cheek, cold and performative. Enjoy your life, sister. You really should thank me. If I hadn't run away, you'd still be invisible. Still be nothing. But because of me. She gestured around the modest house. You got all this. And then she was gone, sweeping out with Thomas, leaving Emma standing in the middle of the room feeling small and exposed and worthless. Jake turned to Emma. She's wrong. Is she? Emma's voice was hollow. I wasn't your choice, Jake. I was just convenient. That's not true. Isn't it? Emma looked at him with eyes that had stopped hoping. You married me to defy your father. To prove a point. Not because you wanted me. Emma, listen. I'm tired. She moved toward the stairs. I'm just very tired. She went upstairs and closed the door. Jake stood alone in the room that had started to feel like home and watched it all fall apart. That night, Emma lay in bed staring at nothing. On the floor, Jake didn't sleep either. The walls were back higher than ever, and neither of them knew how to tear them down. 2 days after Clara's visit, Emma moved through the house like a ghost. She cooked, cleaned, spoke only when necessary. But the light that had started to grow between them was gone, snuffed out by her sister's poison. Jake tried. He'd start conversations Emma would end with one-word answers. He'd watch her with something almost like worry. But Emma couldn't meet his eyes anymore. Because Clara was right. Emma hadn't been chosen. She'd been accepted. Kept because breaking the arrangement was worse than keeping an unwanted wife. On the 3rd day, horses approached the house. Emma looked out the window and her stomach dropped. 3 riders, William Cole, a man in an expensive suit carrying a leather case, and Judge Morrison in his formal robes. Jake was in the barn. Emma ran to get him. Your father's here. With a judge and a lawyer. Jake's face went hard. Stay inside. Jake. But he was already striding toward the yard. Emma watched from the window as William dismounted, his expression cold and satisfied. Father, what's this about? William pulled papers from his coat. This is Mr. Blackwell, my attorney. And Judge Morrison. We're here to annul your marriage. The hell you are. You married the wrong woman without family approval, Jacob. You violated our agreement. What agreement? When I gave you this land, we made a contract. William thrust papers at Jake. You would marry to strengthen the family's position. Clara Miller was that marriage. Emma Miller was not. Jake scanned the papers, his jaw tight. William continued, and according to the deed, I still hold rights to half this ranch until you turn 40. Which means I have legal standing to contest any marriage that damages family interests. A 4th rider appeared, a woman in an elegant riding habit, blonde and polished and everything Emma wasn't. Jake. She dismounted with practiced grace. Father said you might need persuading. William gestured. This is Margaret Morrison, the judge's daughter. Educated. Well-bred. The woman you should have married. Margaret smiled brilliantly. It's wonderful to finally meet you properly, Jake. William's voice turned cold. Annul this marriage to the Miller girl. Marry Margaret. Keep your land, your inheritance, your standing. The Cole family remains powerful. And if I refuse? I invoke the contract. Take back my half of this ranch. You'll have scraps, Jacob. Barely enough to survive. William stepped closer. Is she really worth losing everything? Inside, Emma heard every word. Her hands shook. Her vision blurred. She was going to cost Jake everything. His land. His future. His family. Because she was the wrong sister. She couldn't let that happen. Emma grabbed her carpetbag and started packing. Her few dresses. Her mother's Bible. The small things that were hers. She'd leave. Disappear. Free Jake from this disaster. She was halfway down the stairs when the door opened. Jake stood there, alone, his face unreadable. Where are you going? I heard. Emma's voice broke. Jake, I won't let you lose your ranch because of me. I'll go back to my father. You can annul it. Marry Margaret. No. Jake, please, your land. I don't care about the land. That's not true. It's not worth more than you. His voice was fierce, desperate. Emma, listen. I didn't choose you in that church to be noble or spiteful. I chose you because when everyone was laughing, you were the only person who looked as terrified as I felt. Emma's breath caught. And every day since, I've watched you take this cold house and make it warm. I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion trying to earn a place you already had. His hands gripped her shoulders gently. You weren't my first choice. You were my best choice. And I was too scared to see it. Tears streamed down Emma's face. I'm not losing you. Not to my father. Not to your sister's lies. Not to your belief that you don't deserve to be wanted. His voice broke. Say, please, let me fight for you. But your ranch can burn. He pulled her close. Emma, don't go. She looked into his eyes and saw the truth, raw, unguarded, real. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Jake held her like she might disappear. Outside, William Cole watched through the window, his face twisted with fury. This wasn't over. The town meeting was William's final move. He'd spent the week building his case, calling in favors, rallying support. By Sunday, everyone knew about the situation at Jake Cole's ranch. The church hall was packed. Every seat filled. People standing along walls. The whole territory had come to watch. Emma sat beside Jake in the front row, her hand in his, her heart hammering. Judge Morrison called order. We're here to address Jacob Cole's marriage to Emma Miller, which William Cole has challenged. William stood, commanding every eye. My son made a rash decision. He married a woman he didn't choose, in anger and pride. This marriage is a mistake that must be corrected. The crowd murmured. I have witnesses. Emma's father stood, looking uncomfortable. The morning of the wedding, Emma delivered my message alone. She could have lied about Clara's whereabouts. She had opportunity and motive. That's a lie, Jake said coldly. To trap a wealthy man into marriage. The crowd's whispers grew louder. William gestured to Margaret Morrison. Jake can still have the proper marriage. All he must do is annul this mistake. It's not a mistake. Jake stood. And Emma didn't trap me. Then explain your choice, William challenged. Jake turned to face the crowd. I married Emma in defiance of my father's control. But Emma didn't manipulate anything. She delivered news about her sister. The choice to marry her was mine. A choice made in anger, William said. At first, Jake's voice strengthened. But I've spent 6 weeks watching Emma transform a house I'd let die. Fix accounts I'd neglected. Work dawn to dark without complaint. He looked at Emma. She didn't trap me. I chose her. And I'm choosing her now. Then you choose poverty, William said flatly. I will take back half this land. You'll have nothing. I'll have her. You'll have a woman who exists in your life only because her beautiful sister ran away. The room went silent. Jake's voice dropped, dangerous. Emma wasn't second choice. She was the right choice I was blind to see. Clara was beautiful and useless. Emma is real. The kind of woman who builds a life. He faced the crowd. My father wants me to choose between Emma and my inheritance. Between love and money. His voice rang clear. I choose Emma. I choose my life. And I tell my father that his money and approval aren't worth the price. William's face purpled. Then you lose everything. I lose nothing that matters. You ungrateful. I'm grateful I learned what kind of man not to be. Grateful I found a woman who sees me, not my name. He looked at Emma. Emma, stay married to me. Not from obligation. But because I'm asking. Because I want you. Because I love you. Emma stood, tears falling, and walked to him. Yes. Jake kissed her in front of everyone. The room erupted, applause, shocked whispers, gasps. Judge Morrison cleared his throat. If both parties consent, I have no grounds to annul. Mr. Cole is 35. Old enough to choose. The banker stood from the back. I've reviewed the Cole holdings. Jacob's been paying taxes and maintenance for 10 years. That gives him legal claim regardless of the original deed. William went white. Furthermore, Jacob secured a loan against that land 5 years ago. The bank has first claim in any dispute. He handed Jake papers. The land is yours, son. Free and clear. The room exploded. William stood frozen, his power crumbling. Jake looked at his father. You taught me to build an empire. You forgot to teach me why it matters. Emma taught me that. He took Emma's hand. We're leaving. They walked out together into sunlight. That evening, Jake stopped Emma at the bottom of the stairs. Close your eyes. What? Trust me. Please. Emma closed her eyes. Jake led her up the stairs, opened the door to their room. Look. Emma opened her eyes and gasped. The room was decorated. Wildflowers in a vase, fresh, bright, chosen by hand. Candles on the bedside table, waiting to be lit. The bed made with a beautiful new quilt in colors he must have remembered she liked. Ribbons on the curtains. Everything soft and warm and intentional. Jake. Last time, this room was decorated for someone else. For a wedding night that wasn't ours. His voice was rough with emotion. This time, I decorated it. For you. Because I choose you. Not from obligation. Not from spite. From love. Emma's vision blurred with tears. Jake pulled her close. Welcome home, Emma. Really home. She kissed him, soft, then deeper, pouring everything she couldn't say into it. He lifted her in his arms and carried her to the bed that was finally, truly theirs. The candles burned low. The flowers perfumed the air. And in the room where they'd once slept as strangers, they came together as husband and wife. Not because a contract said so. Because they chose it. And that made all the difference.